Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Citizens of the World. I want to thank you for being here tonight, and I want to remind you that we are, all of us, the residents of a swiftly shrinking globe, where what was once local is fast becoming global, and our decisions and opinions resonate well beyond our own borders. I thank you every week for joining me, your host, Al Zucaro, from the epicenter of the Western Hemisphere, here in sunny Boca Raton, Florida, in southern South Palm Beach County, for a pointed look at politics, immigration, culture, and what it means to be a citizen of the world. Well, I have to tell you, I couldn't be more excited about the holiday season, and yet it is the holiday season, and there is so much going on. So we're going to go through a lot here tonight, and then we're going to talk about the rest of the year, and then we're going to make an announcement about calendar year 2012 as we bring calendar year 2011 to a close. The first segment I want to talk about is immigration and economic development. And I want to chat a little bit today about a thing called Visit USA. Now, if you'll remember, a few weeks ago I talked about a thing that I called the gray visa or the silver visa. It's a visa concept that would anticipate that people of means from around the world could come to the United States with no intention of working, demonstrate that they have means, purchase properties here in the United States, live on a year-round basis, but never be given work authorization. And that concept has been bouncing around in the real estate industry. Both the Florida Association of Realtors and the National Association of Realtors have taken this subject up and lobbied for it. Tony Macaluso, who someday I will actually get on the show and talk about it, has been a champion of this for 4 or 5 years now, maybe even longer. And just recently, United States Senators Charles Schumer from New York, Democrat, and Mike Lee from Utah, Republican, have joined together and are advancing a piece of legislation in the U.S. Senate that I'm going to call the Gray Visa or Silver Visa Light. It comes under the banner of Visit, VISIT-USA, and you can pull it up on the website under a Google search and get a lot more information than I'm going to give you here tonight. But it's certainly worthy of news. It's packed with news and worthy of mention. The visit phrase stands for Visa Improvements to Stimulate International Tourism to the United States. And it's designed to reduce some of the barriers, particularly for Canadian and Chinese people. Remember, the federal government in immigration policy is the only entity under the United States Constitution that can discriminate via nationality, to reduce the barriers so that these folks can come here more easily than they are experiencing now. It allows for an expedited priority for U.S. visa applicants who are willing to pay an additional fee to get an expedited decision on their visa application. And it allows for the use of technology vis-a-vis a video conferencing to meet the demand that requires that anyone who wants to come to the United States on a visitor's visa must have a face-to-face interview with an examiner or with a commercial service officer in their country. A pretty burdensome issue over the last few years. This visa provides that if a foreign national comes and invests $500,000 in residential real estate, 250 of that being for their primary residence, and the other 250 could be for investment property, they would be allowed to live in the United States for up to a 3-year period of time, requiring them to spend a minimum of 180 days in the United States per year. Now that's pretty interesting because the 180-day question raises a tax implication. And the tax implication to the foreign national is that they must pay taxes on their worldwide income. And after the new year, we'll ask Richard Lehman to give us an analysis of this particular visa. Now, in theory, I must tell you that I am very pleased that there are more and more pieces of legislation moving through on a bipartisan basis having to do with immigration. In practicality, I'm not sure that this one's going to work, but it has to get past the Senate, it has to get past the House, it has to be signed by the President. There's a ways to go, but just recognize that this is in fact happening as we speak, and I thought it was worthy to bring to your attention as the year comes to an end, and it is a very interesting topic. Well, the second topic that I found interesting and thought worthy of your mentioning is just the other day, 2 days ago, the United States Supreme Court has decided to add immigration to what is an already hot docket for calendar year 2012. They have decided to take up the Arizona case that has been the impetus for many other states with regards to immigration on a state level and what states may or may not be able to do, recognizing or arguing that the states, that immigration is a federal question and not a state question. So there has been a number of topics that have talked about that. There are a number of people that have come out in opposition to both sides of the equation. And in fact, Justice Elena Kagan has said that she would recuse herself from hearing this case, leading to the possibility of a 4-4 tie, which would result in the case on the Arizona in the San Francisco the San Francisco Court of Appeals to become law in the Ninth Circuit, but not have a precedential value throughout the rest of the country. That said, the Supreme Court is going to be looking at the Arizona law, and both sides of the equation make their various arguments, with the federal government saying that the Supreme Court doesn't need to take this up because the appellate court was right, and the Arizona arguing that the Ninth District ruling suggests that there is no action under any provision that would allow them to protect their interests to the onslaught of aliens crossing the border. Very interesting case. The experts suggest that it doesn't have far-ranging stuff with regards to other laws in Alabama, South Carolina, in Utah, or in Georgia and in Indiana, but it certainly is going to be a question that raises very interesting items, along with the Supreme Court taking up the law from Texas with regards to redistricting. And of course, in March, the big kahuna is the 5.5 hours that have been set aside for oral arguments for the Obamacare issue, which is probably the largest item on their agenda as well. Certainly going to be a very, very hot topic, hot Supreme Court this year. We'll return after this break and we'll get into our second section, which will be culture as a precursor to commerce. Well, welcome back, folks. Remember, one of the second item that I always try to talk about is I try to talk about something that has to do with culture as a precursor to commerce. And this week, I must tell you that there is, because it's the holidays, there's probably a gazillion things to talk about, but I did pick 3 that I wanted to highlight. The first one I want to talk about is a few months ago, I think, we brought to your attention all of the cultural elements in the South County, Boca Raton, Delray Beach area. And one of them was FAU. Well, just the other night, Florida Atlantic University presented a madrigal dinner, a new holiday tradition. Florida Atlantic University's Choral and Vocal Studies program presented a new holiday dinner at St. Gregory's Episcopal Church in Boca Raton, Florida. The Renaissance evening was full of pageantry and entertainment, including court jesters, wandering minstrels, and other characters. And I must tell you that it was just an incredible episode. And I'm going to hold up some of the pictures that made it to the newspaper. Now, whether they actually come across on the screen in sufficient manner, we'll let you be the judge of that. But here are the pictures that was reported in the local newspaper recently, and I just want you to know that Florida Atlantic University is doing a yeoman's job of putting culture into the community and taking it out to the world, and we thank them for that. The second item that I wanted to bring to your attention with regards to culture has to do with my Jewish friends. And the Boca Chabads hosted a Hanukkah festival and concert. This will actually take place in Sanborn Square, an outdoor concert on December 25th, Christmas Day, and it is a group, actually it's two Chabads, the Central, East, and West Boca Raton are joining together this year to host the 7th annual festival and concert. Hanukkah is a time when people want to come out and celebrate a great miracle of Jewish survival. Through public menorah lightings all over the world, Chabad is the forefront of bringing people together to joy and in unity. That's the theme behind this event. In the past years, residents of South Florida have joined with politicians, local corporations, and dignitaries to celebrate the holiday. This year, more than 2,000 people are expected to attend. And I really have spent some time in the Chabads lately here in Boca Raton. Very active, very political, and I'm so glad that they are bringing this particularly to the people. We are a Judeo-Christian nation, and keeping those elements are important to me. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in Kudos and Chaos. But in the meantime, let's move on to fireworks and politics. And this week I want to talk about Cuba. Now, I'm talking about Cuba a lot lately because it seems to always be in the news. But there is a boat brigade that is traveling from South Florida to the 12-mile limit in international waters, escorted by a U.S. Coast Guard cutter that is going to do a fireworks demonstration in international waters that will be able to be seen from the shores of Cuba, even into the city of Havana. And that is raising some eyebrows both in Cuba and in the State Department. And it was reported just a few days ago that the State Department has urged the Cuban government and the group of exiles here in South Florida to exercise, quote, restraint, close quote, when it comes to the flotilla of boats staging this fireworks show. The issue really becomes the Cuban government's concern that this will cause a small dissident group on the island to become more vocal. Well, you know what? That would be a good thing. And it is not being sanctioned by the United States. As I said, the State Department is talking to both sides to exercise restraint, but it is going to have an escort of Coast Guard ships to make sure it stays in international waters and to try and deter any issue. So it's a very interesting item. But it led me to talk about a couple of other things. First of all, it seems like the Raul Castro government is reducing some of the pressures and allowing for some more religious freedoms. It was announced the other day that Pope Benedict the 16th will be visiting Cuba this spring. The 84-year-old pontiff will be making a stop in Cuba and then on to Chile and other places in Latin and South America. And it is an interesting episode that we have all of this unrest going on here in the Western Hemisphere with regards to Cuba and some of the other leftist-leaning countries, that the Pope is coming here to make an appeal, to perform a mass, I'm sure, and to do some diplomacy and dialogue with the leaders of the Western Hemisphere. Now, why is that important? I suggest that all of you go out to the web and look up an organization, look up the phrase CELAC. And you'll find that CELAC is the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, which was officially launched just recently in a summit in Caracas, Venezuela. On Thursday, December 8th, a commentary was published by Guillermo Martinez in the Sun Sentinel here in Fort Lauderdale that talked about this. And it talked about this group of 33 nations coming together excluding the United States and Canada from participating, and setting as its objective, or one of its objectives, as you'll find as you read, the action plan commits the group to developing a strategy to design a new regional financial architecture based in the principles of justice, solidarity, and transparency, interesting phrases, and to working to redesign the international financial institutions such as the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the Inter-American Development Bank. Now, the question that Guillermo Martinez raises is, does this issue, or does this group, now in its formation stages, make the U.S. less relevant in the Western Hemisphere? And I think the question clearly is a good question and could be answered in the affirmative. So I suggest that you take a look at that. Why? Because we have seen over the last few months some very disturbing stuff. But remember, with regards to the Pope coming here, I think that it's something that we should be concerned about. Not concerned in a bad way, and concerned in a good way. As you know, there's a lot going on with regards to the island nations. Okay, we know that the president recently went to Brazil and encouraged Brazil to participate in oil drilling and told the Brazilian government that we would be their largest customer. We know that the Cubans have entered into an agreement with the Chinese and that there is a deep water rig on its way to Cuba right now to begin drilling. We know that the Bahamas just recently indicated that they have an interest in drilling for oil as well. Economics is dictating. Capitalism will prevail. There are customers out there that need oil. The challenge, however, is that these rigs will be, if they begin to operate, will be within 40 or 50 miles of the east coast of Florida, will be inside of the Gulf Stream, and any effect like the BP oil spill will have dramatic impact on the state of Florida. We need to be participating on that in a very engaged manner, and we can't allow that to happen, a period, end of story. So there are some real serious concerns coming up, and I thought that the fireworks off the coast of Cuba can demonstrate more of the fireworks that actually exist between the United States and the relationship to Cuba. Now, finally, let's go to kudos and KOs. I have a bunch that I'm just going to go through real rapidly. Kudos. The city of Boca Raton is about to approve, or is being asked to approve, a major housing and mixed-use development in downtown Boca Raton on an empty parcel of land that will again take us to another level and allow for the city of Boca Raton to increase its tax base, increase its importance in the international community. Kudos, bring that forward really quickly, get it done. KO, the city of Boca Raton. They backed down. You're going to take all symbolisms of the holiday season off of public spaces in the city of Boca Raton because you're afraid of being sued? What the hell are you worried about? Let them sue us. You know, it's not an unknown thing. This is a Judeo-Christian nation, folks. We got to stand for something. If we don't stand for something, we stand for nothing. And the bottom line is that we can't be intimidated by lawsuits from people that have an agenda and disrespect the history of this country. I KO to that decision. Kudos. Got to give Wellington a big kudo. They've advanced their Equestrian Fest. They're offering higher prize money. They're bringing in people from all over the world. I think 30 or 40 countries are going to be represented. Go Wellington. KO, back to my friends in the city of West Palm Beach. Now the Housing and Urban Development is involved in a investigation on the low-income housing projects. Millions of dollars were spent. No accountability. Bishop Ray from the church, the not-for-profit agency that was involved in here, stands up and says that he can't produce the documentation because of a change in administrative policy. Horse manure, number one. Number two, he's defended by City Commissioner Keith James, who happens to have been his lawyer through this whole thing. Mr. James's voice should not even be heard in this thing. He's got a conflict of interest. Back off, West Palm. It's millions of dollars that you're going to have to refund back to the government. Kudu, Florida debt falls. First time in 20 years. Nobody liked Governor Scott. He had a 28% approval rating. He's up in the high 40s now, and he's doing some really incredible things. He's the best salesman the state of Florida has ever had. He's been all around the world. Just been to Brazil recently, been to Canada last year, got back from Israel, or maybe still in Israel as we speak. He's dispatching the lieutenant governor all around the world. We got people looking at the state in a really different way, and we are the largest producer of jobs this year. He having produced, or the state having produced 100,000 net new jobs. KO to the federal government. We bailed out General Motors, and what happens? They put a electric car on the road, and what happens? The batteries catch fire. They're buying back their own cars from the people that bought them. And Kudu for the high-speed ferry out of the Port Everglades going to the Bahamas. Very exciting. I hope they get that off the ground. So now, those are my kudos and KOs, probably the last that I'll do for calendar year 2011. I just want to talk about, I take a moment and I want to talk about what we're going to do in 2012. I want to thank my audience. We've been getting some positive feedback about what we're doing. We'd like to hear more positive feedback about what we're doing. But I'd also like to thank the station and the producer for helping us to take a serious next step move. Beginning in January, probably towards the middle of January, we will be going to a 2-day-a-week format. We'll have 2 half-hour shows on Wednesday and Thursday, and then the shows will be combined together and replayed on Fridays. So we will be on the air 2 hours every week beginning the middle of January. I'm going to begin to make an effort to allow other people, but invite other people to participate in the show, because I think you guys got to be getting tired of hearing me pontificate. So we're going to do some interviewing techniques and things of that nature. Very excited. Citizen of the World is expanding. The station is expanding. The internet television concept is the wave of the future. We're very excited and we look forward to it. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and I want to remind you that we are, all of us, the residents of a swiftly shrinking globe, where what was once local is fast becoming global, and our decisions and opinions resonate well beyond our own borders. I thank you for joining me each week here in the epicenter of the Western Hemisphere, Boca Raton, Florida, in sunny South Palm Beach County, for a pointed look at politics, immigration, culture, and what it means to be a citizen of the world.